Good morning and welcome to the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for January 6, 2022. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda today, there are speaker request forms on the table along the left wall. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff seated on the left of the dais. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn the ringer off or have it fully off. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Items 1 through 16 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 5, 21 PD 048, and item 7, 21 UR 052. The Rapid City Planning Commission's actions on these two items are final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 16 that staff would like removed?
Yes, items 8 and 14, please.
Okay. Any items 1 through 16 other than 8 and 14 that the Planning Commission would like removed? And any items that any audience member wants removed at this time other than 8 and 14? All right. Chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 16 with the exception of item 8 and item 14 in accordance with staff's recommendation on each. All right, Vince made the motion as stated, and Eric Heikus seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8.
Good morning, Sarah Hansel with the Planning Projects Division. Item number 8 we had placed on the consent calendar. However, we do have some audience members in attendance today who have some concerns about this proposal, so we'd like to give a brief presentation. The request is to rezone 0.33 acres of property from office commercial district to medium density residential district. You're looking at an aerial view of the property here. It's located generally along Wesleyan Boulevard. You can see the subject property is currently undeveloped. It's currently zoned office commercial district. The surrounding properties around it to the north is developed with a church and is zoned general agricultural district. To the east, there's residential development, which is zoned medium density residential district. And to the east and south is office commercial. The future land use category for this entire area is urban neighborhood, which would support a rezoning to medium density residential district. Here's a view showing the subject property as it relates to the city's major street plan. We've got Plaza Boulevard, which is a minor arterial, and Wesleyan Boulevard is a local street. Here are some site photos looking into the property. You can see that the rezoning sign was posted. This is looking south from Wesleyan Boulevard. This is looking to the west. There you can see the office commercial district, existing development, and the church then would be located to the north over here. And then this is looking, this is looking north across to the church and to the west towards the existing residential development. As staff is reviewing this application, we're looking at what are the surrounding land uses. Would medium density residential district be compatible with that? The future land use for this property is is urban neighborhood, and so this does comply with the future land use. And when a specific development proposal comes forward, the criteria would be reviewed for either a building permit or if a planned development or a conditional use permit would be needed. That would be reviewed at that time. So we are recommending that this item be approved, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. We do have a speaker request on this item from Patty Cussman, if you'd like to address it. And once you're at the microphone, please identify yourself with your address.
I'll mention the handout.
Okay.
Excuse me, I failed to mention, they did provide a handout which was distributed across the dais, so I'm guessing she'll reference that.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Patty Koosman. I live at Harmony Heights Townhomes, which is the development that you're seeing on the plat. I made that copy because what we received with the letter was just looked like a picture. It didn't really look like a plat, and wanted to kind of have everybody look. It is a homeowners association. I wanted everybody to review that plat because of our main concern is the drainage. There's drainage that goes behind the townhomes, and the city engineer has been out on a number of occasions with our concerns regarding the drainage. And that's why we're here today. We want to express our concerns. We want to just be on the record that we have concerns about the drainage as it leads into this lot. And we'd like that to be passed along to the city planning, to the engineers. So we wanted to be on record today that regarding our real concerns about the drainage. We have had issues, and there's just some issues that we're not opposed to the change in the zoning. We're not opposed to a builder building an appropriate home on this lot or a townhome. Matter of fact, we would much rather work with the city, work with the builder, work with everybody. So that's what we want to do, but we just wanted to get the message out regarding our concerns of the drainage and how it goes on to that lot. So I guess I'm on record, and I appreciate you listening to me today. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Ms. Koosman? I'm not seeing any from the commission, but thank you for airing your concerns.
Thank you very much for having us here today.
Any questions for staff on item number 8 from the commission, or Mike Kwasny?
I guess this would be for Vicky, and it might be for somebody else. I'm not sure who we need to. Is there a drainage problem in that area? It looks like the water tends to drain right through there, or is there a solution that has been proposed?
Mr. Chair.
Vicky?
So there is a major drainage easement that does run along the rear lot line of these lots in this area. And similar to any subdivision that lays out that way, there are times when we have really wet springs or a property owner adjacent to these drainage easements causes additional flow and into the easement, and it can impact other properties. We work very hard with the neighborhoods when they are designed this way to ensure that those major drainage easements are preserved. Anyone that comes in for a building permit, it may not require another public hearing if they want to bring a use in that doesn't trigger the review and approval of the Planning Commission. The city engineers will thoroughly vet that building permit. We will look at the constraints of the platted notes and easements, and they need to design their site that any flows coming off of this property are not in addition to how they exist today. In other words, they've got to create that on-site detention so that they do not have an impact on any of the adjacent property owners. I think the comments today were well received, and thank you. It is something that we routinely look at for every building permit.
Okay, so basically the problems will be taken care of for drainage, so. Okay.
Any other questions or comments on item 8 from the commission? If not, I'd look for a motion. Anyone? Thank you. Mike made the motion to approve item number 8, the rezoning. Okay. Is there a second? Kelly seconded that motion. All right. Any discussion on the motion to approve the rezoning request for item number 8 per staff stipulations? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 14 is a preliminary subdivision plan to create 80 lots in a residential development that will be known as Apple Valley Subdivision. This is phase 1 of a 4-phase development. The property is located outside of the city limits, but within the city's 3-mile plating jurisdiction. And what that means to us is that the county has jurisdiction on the zoning and the density. The city then, in reviewing that plat, has jurisdiction on infrastructure. Is the water and sewer going to be extended to accommodate the proposed density and number of lots and type of lots that are being proposed? Are the streets being constructed to accommodate the traffic from the neighborhood? And so that's what we're going to bring you today. This county currently has this zoned general ag district. The Pennington County Planning Director has indicated that they've worked with the applicants and that they will be proposing a rezone to urban residential, which allows lots as small as 6,000 square feet. The county has a zoning known as suburban residential district, which mirrors the city's low-density residential district. And in the city, we require a minimum 6,500 square foot lot. As it stands for this first phase, all of the lots are in excess of 6,500 square feet. So they will need to work with the county on whether or not that zoning would be allowed. And you'll see a stipulation in the report that says prior to submittal of a final plat, they will have to secure that zoning in the county. If the county denies that zoning, this plat goes nowhere. And remember, a preliminary subdivision plan is a what if. If they plat, what is required? And that's what we're bringing forward to you today. If they plat, they will need to work with the county to ensure that the County Board of Commissioners are on board with the density being proposed with this subdivision. The city's future land use plan identifies the appropriate land use for this area as low-density neighborhood, which would support the lots that are being proposed today. You typically, if this were in the city limits and we were bringing you that rezone, we would ask ourselves, is there water, is there sewer, and is there sufficient road networking? Even though an area is identified as low-density neighborhood, it may not be appropriate until that infrastructure is there to support it. In this instance, the developer has been working with Rapid Valley Sanitary District to extend and connect to their facility in order to have that public water and sewer improvement. Anderson Road is identified as a minor arterial street on the major street plan. There is a dashed green line that goes through the south end of the property. They are proposing a collector street as shown on the major street plan. They did submit a traffic impact study. Since the master plan does include a total of 467 lots in the future, this particular phase did not trigger it, but the additional phases will. And they wanted to ensure that if there were improvements needed on Anderson Road, they incorporate that into this first phase. And as a result of that, they will be expanding Anderson Road to 3 lanes and constructing 4-foot wide shoulders on either side of the road. There will be no sidewalk on this section of the road, and they did secure an exception not to put in curb and gutter. All of the interior streets will be built to full city street design standards. The traffic impact study did look at numerous intersections and all of the adjacent streets to ensure that the development at full build-out would have a minimal impact, and that was the recommendation that they came forward, that there would be no additional impacts beyond what the developer is proposing in order to accommodate the traffic from this project at full build-out. This is the layout. There's a match line there, so it's a little confusing. These connect and they run in a line. Those that are colored yellow, pink, blue, and orange, I guess, that's the 80 lots. The balance of it would be future phases that would have to come before you as a preliminary subdivision plan when they get that area designed. Looking into the property, and you can see that this is relatively a rural area. Not a lot of development existing along Anderson Road right now. Looking down Anderson Road, looking back towards 44. The state also reviewed this application. They were heavily vetted in the traffic impact study comments. There were several red line comments that had to be addressed from the state, from the city, and from the county as a part of this project coming forward. You can see across the street some of the development that exists today. Additional development. So when we bring this forward to you, we're looking at the city's infrastructure design criteria manual. What are those requirements in order to accommodate the needs of a residential development in an otherwise remote area? And you'll see the stipulations do require that Rapid Valley enter into an agreement with the city for that extension of water and sewer. This is in an area that would not normally be in Rapid Valley service boundary area, but we will work with them on securing that agreement. The rest of the stipulations are standard. They do have to bring forward a road maintenance agreement. All of those internal roads will be the responsibility of this developer. The county will not take on that maintenance, unlike the city, where if we were subdividing in the city would take on that road maintenance. With that, we are recommending that the item be approved. I will say that I've had some wonderful conversations with a couple of the property owners in the area, and we certainly can sympathize with the concerns that they have with the change of character that this is going to bring to their neighborhood. Unfortunately for the city, we don't have the authority over the density question. That lays in the lap of the county. What we have the authority over is the infrastructure. And this applicant has done due diligence in trying to identify at this very early stage what that infrastructure will look like. I believe that those that will speak today will also be speaking at the county when that rezone application comes forward. I will stand for any questions that you might have for me, but I encourage you to take comment from the neighborhood as well.
Thank you, Vicki. I appreciate it. We do have a few commissioners up. Do you have questions for Vicki before we get to public comment? Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are two. They're simple. One is, would this project see covenants forthcoming? And number two would be, would they allow for modular manufactured housing as is typical for these lot sizes?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
I'm going to defer to the applicant. Land use is not under the authority of the city, that's the county. Will require covenant for drainage maintenance of major drainage easements and elements, but if a representative for this project could speak to land use covenant and the type of residential development that you will be proposing.
You could identify yourself once you're up.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrew Skull, 2665 Cavern Road, managing member of Pink Cabin LLC. Specifically to answer your questions, Eric, number one, no, there will not be any modular manufactured homes located on the property. They're all still stick-framed homes represented by a local builder. And as far as, yes, there will be covenants designated to the development that at such time will be filed with the county. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have while I'm here. Big picture here is, I guess, just to lay the line. I think Mrs. Fisher did a great job of explaining the roles and duties of the Rapid City Planning Commission in terms of this action. This project we have worked through the county. The county commissioners have approved a TIF for the improvement of Anderson Road, Longview, about 2 miles of Anderson and Longview combined, as well as the sewer and water infrastructure. The Rapid City has set a precedent to date in terms of already approving exceptions in terms of the type of storm pipe that would be used, as well as allowing the road to be built to a rural section. And the agreement between Rapid Valley Sanitary District and Rapid City has been met for the connections of the sanitary sewer to tie into the Rapid City system. So we are going to the county commission, or the county planning commission, next Monday the 10th, and then for the rezoning, which will be followed up on the 18th for the through the county commissioners. So I could talk long and hard about the project and answer any questions that you would like.
All right, I appreciate it. We may call you back up. John,
I'm just curious,
oh, Andy, this might be for you.
are you going to have water capacity to provide hydrants and everything, or are you going to have, are they going to be required to be sprinkled?
Yes, there will be water capacity to provide adequate fire hydrants. There's currently, Rapid Valley Sanitary District will be providing the water. Rapid Valley has ample capacity. I think they currently have a capacity of 5.5 million gallons per day. They're currently using only 1.5 million gallons per day. There is also a Rapid City water main that goes through this area to serve the airport, which does not have the appropriate capacity, and therefore that's why Rapid Valley would be providing that.
Okay, thank you.
Haven?
My question, I guess, is before us is an application for a preliminary subdivision plan. And as I understand, Vicki, this is more to Vicki, I guess, than Andy, but our action today or approval of this really has no effect on the platting, which we also have in the application. Is that right?
Vicki?
The preliminary subdivision plan before you today is the first step in a three-step platting process. I like to describe the preliminary subdivision plan as the what-if plat. This is just laying the stipulations out for the applicant to know that if he does want to subdivide this property, these are the minimum things that will have to be done before he can secure a final plat approval and then start selling these lots. So one of those stipulations is that the property be rezoned. If the county denies the rezone, they don't proceed with this plat.
But our action, though, we're not approving or disapproving the plat, that the lot size and the layout of the lots. Is that right?
You are approving the lot layout as presented today. The county determines the size of those lots based on the zoning that they put on this property. They have authority over land use. The city, when we are reviewing plats outside the city limits, in the 3-mile platting jurisdiction, our area of authority is to the infrastructure. The county has the authority over zoning. If this were a property located in the city limits, we would be talking about, is this appropriate density? Are these lots of sufficient size? The county gets the authority over that. What we need to ensure is that there are sufficient streets and utilities based on the density that is supported by the county.
So I'm still a little confused. You said that we are approving the proposed plat, but the county has the authority over the lot size.
Correct.
So that seems to be a little contradictory. I mean, either if we approve this, are we approving the lot size as shown on this preliminary plat?
Remember, this is a what if. So we're saying if you want to create these size lots, then you must first secure the rezone from the county. If the county denies the rezone, then they'll have to redesign these lots. So this doesn't lock it down where they could then tomorrow submit a final plat. This is just spelling out to the applicant that if they are proposing lots of 6,500 square feet or larger, that they have to first work with the county to ensure that the zoning is supported by the county in order to create and submit a final plat for this density.
And so I think my understanding then is that a lot of the major issues with this development are really fall onto the county. as opposed to the city. I mean, you've done the homework here on the city with regard to the things that you've been talking about. But yeah, the county really has a say over a lot of the issues that I think the neighborhood would be concerned about.
Exactly. Well said, Haven, and thank you for pushing to ensure that everyone understands that. And this is the one area of joint jurisdiction that we share with the county. When it's subdivision of property by state law, the city has the right to review it to ensure that the infrastructure is addressed. The county, though, has the authority over what type of land use that will be and what the density will be. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I add one add one comment?
Yeah, go for it.
I think that maybe there may be a request today to continue this item and wait until the zoning is done or not done through the county. I'd request per staff recommendation for approval, as we know that if the zoning is not approved, what your actions are null and void anyway. So I'd suggest that we move forward with approval. That would be my request of this commission today. Thank you. I'll be available for any more questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
if the zoning were not to be approved by the county, that would null and void this plat. If they had to reconfigure it, they would have to start over with a new application.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, we have a few speaker requests here. First one, Dan Mullally, if you want to speak to this. If you could identify yourself at the microphone once you're up.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Dan Mullally. I live at 6390 Longview Road, which is about half mile from this development. And I would like to ask that this not be approved. And there's some other speakers that are going to come up. But I'm just going to make a general statement that I think the city and you planners really need to take a look at what's going on with these developments outside the city, in particular Rapid Valley, and rather than maybe just going by the book and always throwing it back to the county, take a look at what we're going to end up with there, and it's going to be a bunch of spot zoning and urban sprawl, and it's just going to be residential. And it's not going to be something that's going to be very desirable for the expansion of the city. So for now, I would recommend we continue this, and I'll just say thank you for letting me speak on that issue.
Thank you. Travis Lassiter.
Thank you, Chairman. Travis Lassiter, County Commissioner, District 4. I'm here on behalf of the residents in that area that I represent, and I just would like to ask for a continuance of this item until the county makes a determination on what we're going to do with the zoning. I'm actually on the Planning and Zoning Commission starting next week, so I'll be hearing this there. I've been doing a lot of research on it. I'll just point out that the TIF was a split vote. It was a 3-2 vote, and the two that voted no for that TIF, actually we have some surrounding infrastructure concerns, and I've been doing a lot of research to find that out. So ultimately, I get what this is. This is a preliminary layout for it, and what the county decides to do is, you know, whatever they vote and decide is going to impact it. But the request for me is that as we're working through and trying to collect all this data and making sure the broader picture is taken care of in that community, all the supporting infrastructure with all the growth that's going on, to include the base and all the impact along Radar Hill Road, continue this until the county makes its determination of what we're going to allow that density to be. And just so for everyone here to know, our current future projection for that, according to our comp plan, was that it was low density residential, which does not meet what the current proposed lot sizes are. So just to put that out there in the planning and zoning's mind as well. So thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions, I stand here to answer them.
Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Just for clarification, I think I missed this at the beginning of Vicki's presentation. The lot size and the density, I guess you should, criteria, how does the county line up with the city? Is it similar, is it higher, or is it lower?
Well, as I noted in my presentation, the city does see this area long-term as low-density neighborhood. But just because it says low-density neighborhood may not mean that it's appropriate today. We need to ensure that there is sewer, water, streets, and drainage being addressed. And that's what this applicant has done, is in this application brought in preliminary information to show that he's worked with Rapid Valley Sanitary District, that he's making improvements to Longview Road and Anderson Road, that he submitted a traffic impact study to address traffic concerns, and a conceptual drainage layout showing that they will be creating some drainage lots on this as a part of this, and they will have to maintain those drainage lots perpetually. So once they've done that, then they can move towards meeting those numbers. But if Planning Commissioner Lassiter is correct, his comment is it doesn't match the county's future land use plan, but that is a discussion they need to have at the county level.
Sure, okay, thank you.
All right, I have, Haven, do you have a follow-up?
I do have a question, I guess, for Vicki. Travis suggested a different order of what's happening here. In other words, that what is before us today could be delayed until after the county takes certain action. Maybe you can clarify that for me.
You can do that. It's your option. Just remember, most preliminary subdivision plans, the developers haven't even started that process. They bring it in, we route it back to the county planning, highway, and fire departments. Our city, there's probably 13 different agencies that have looked at this application from state, county, and city. In most instances, the county identifies to us that they'll need to rezone. They secure preliminary subdivision plan approval from Planning Commission and City Council, and then they go to the county and make those applications. If the county denies the rezone, and that has happened in the past, the preliminary subdivision plan is moot, because a stipulation of approval says you can't proceed if you do not secure the rezone. But it's up to you. You could act on it today, which doesn't give the applicant any more authority to proceed until they finalize the rezone with the county.
So, but the question, I guess, is does it impede the progress here if we act after the county acts on the rezone?
That would be a question for the applicant.
Haven, would you like to pose that question to the applicant? Mr. Skull?
In the typical process, Mr. Stuck, what you would see a lot of times, and what you guys see is a lot of times the rezone and the preliminary subdivision plan are run concurrently or side by side. And you are correct that it's a little complex when you're dealing with two different jurisdictional issues with the city and the county and anything within that 3-mile zone. Yes, it would slow down the process, because how this tends to work is ultimately once the the zoning is approved by the county, there's also an advertisement period associated with that before it becomes official. So if you really want to wait, we're talking about months. We're not talking about days or weeks. And so therefore, like I said, your decisions today, if the zoning is not approved, become null and void in the future. So we would request approval so that we can keep this process continually moving forward as it has been such with the city and the county to date. I think we've been to City Council on 2 or 3 different occasions for other exceptions previously already on this project. And so we would like to keep that momentum moving forward.
Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I have a question about fire and safety. In particular, it appears that the Rapid Valley Volunteer Fire Department would be servicing this area. Is that correct?
Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that would be correct at this point.
So, and how is the Rapid Valley Volunteer Fire Department funded?
That I really don't have, I don't have an answer for that one. They do have a taxing entity or district, but I don't have the full details.
And when it
on
comes
that.
to law enforcement, is that handled by the Pennington County Sheriff's Department, or will Rapid City Police?
I can maybe help answer that question.
Sure.
It is the Pennington County Sheriff's Department. As far as our approved TIF application, within that, there was money allocated to build a small sheriff substation located within the development, not specifically for the development, but due to the desire of the sheriff wanting to have better response time to the whole Rapid Valley area. And so that was one of the requests of the county, was to include that within the TIF.
Okay.
So you will see a satellite sheriff station built along Anderson Road as part of this overall development.
And do you know how the Rapid Valley Volunteer Fire Department is funded?
Vince, I'm sorry, I cannot specifically answer that question, but I do know that, and our design engineer consultant is with us today, I do know that the area will be hydrant to modern standards as you would see built in Rapid City.
Okay, thank you.
And plenty of fire flows associated with Rapid Valley Sanitary District.
Thank you.
Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this might go back to Vicki, and I don't know if Andrew will be able to answer this. As I understand it, we're dealing with the sewer, water, streets, and drainage. And I believe it was mentioned that they would not put curb and gutter in this development. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
that is only along Anderson Road. The balance of the streets internal to this will be constructed like any other city street: curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light conduit, water, sewer, and pavement.
Okay. That was my concern, and I appreciate that comment. So,
John Hurd?
Vicki, does this have to go to council then? Is that what you meant? You said approval by us and the city council. Well, if their meeting is on Monday, is that what you said?
We initially meet with the Pennington County Planning Commission on Monday the 10th, and then we would meet with the Pennington County Commissioners on the rezone on the 18th of January.
Okay, so that's, I was thinking they were both meeting on the same day, and that would also, theirs would happen before city council.
And that is correct. It would be, I believe, the county commissioner meeting's in the morning.
Right.
And the city council meeting is that evening.
Correct.
Yeah.
In essence, they will hear it before city council hears it.
They will.
Yes.
Okay. That might solve everything.
All right, I have one more speaker request I need to get to. Bob Anderson, would you like to address this?
Bob Anderson, 3365 Anderson Road, Rapid City. I'm just going to address a couple points here. Dan Mulally addressed the same kind of issues I wanted to. We all know that Rapid City is expanding, and we've enjoyed living out in the valley for many, many years out there. And when he talked about spot zoning, rezoning, the slides that were shown to you people did not include the look just to the north of where where most of us live. It would be north and then on the west side of Anderson Road. Everybody out there has between 5 and 10 acres. I put up hay in the neighborhood for most people out there, and I don't feel that this was a good fit for the city. I've driven around Cheyenne and other major cities where all of a sudden you've got some open land and whammo, you got all this spot zoning. It's just not a good footprint. If we're going to grow the city, let's do it in a responsible manner and increase the lot sizes. As far as fire goes, look what happened down in Boulder the other day. You can tell by the footprint of looking the aerial views. Those houses were right on top of each other. And spontaneous combustion, I'm sure, just took over and burned everything down. There's an incomplete traffic study. Mr. Skull has stated in other meetings that with the expanse of Ellsworth Air Force Base, the projection is that possibly 15% of the people from the subdivision would be traveling down Radar Hill Road. Radar Hill Road now is awful congested as it is. The traffic study did not include the intersection of 1416, and we all know what's happened there in the last few years. They've actually added a stop sign down there to try and relieve some of that. But any more pressure is not going to be good down there. Like I said, I wish some of these pictures that they would have showed you would have included the view just another half mile to the north and to the west, and you would be able to see the outlining properties around there. There are horses and cows and all kinds of neighbors. So take that into consideration when you're concerning the rezoning. Thank you. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any questions? I'm not seeing any, but we appreciate your comments.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Other comments or questions from the commissioners? I'll jump in since I have a moment and there's no lights up. I don't, I struggle with these type of applications because what we're put in front of us, we're supposed to evaluate the infrastructure, and the infrastructure seems to be answered in this subdivision plan, and that if this were inside the city limits, we would certainly be having the land use, lot size, all those discussions, but that's not really in front of us today, and so it's a tough call for all us commissioners, because I don't think anybody well, I can't speak for any other commissioners. I can only speak for me. But I don't see any issues with the infrastructure. That's where I stand.
Mr. Chair, if I
Vicki?
might. So there are counties in South Dakota and throughout the nation who have created plating regulations that wouldn't allow for spot zoning. Pennington County does not have that limitation. I was visiting with the county planning director for Minnehaha County, and in the 16 years that he's been the county director, he's reviewed one plat, because they have a requirement there. You're only allowed to plat if you're adjacent to the city limits, and then you have to annex in as a part of that. That is not the rules, though, in Pennington County. And so the county commission, their planning commission, they're limited to enforce the rules that are at hand. They could change that, and maybe that's a discussion this group should start having with the county commissioners. But at this point, once the county approves that rezone, the city's delegated then to review the infrastructure. We appreciate that there's concern with sprawl. It taxes infrastructure maintenance, schools, fire response, police response. But in this instance, that falls at the discretion of the county commission, and we need to defer to them for that discussion.
Thanks, Vicki. Haven?
I would just like to echo what Eric said. I guess our authority here is limited, and as I indicated before, I think our staff has done the research with regard to what the city involvement is. But I guess I'm concerned that approval of this would be some indication that we're in favor or approve of the proposed development, and which is really an issue for the county. And I guess I'm understanding that, and hopefully I guess everybody does. This is really gets down to a county issue as opposed to a city issue, and our action today, one way or another, isn't approving the spot zoning or the proposed development.
Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little off subject here, but how far out are we, and is there any feasibility of comprehensive planning in this area? Is that a reality? I mean, we're looking at an example of spot zoning that maybe we should start thinking holistically on the county level, and maybe that's a question for the county commissioners too, but maybe there's an idea. Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
I have sat on a committee that met it's probably been a year and a half ago, and we kind of dusted off the notes and met again about a month ago. But it's a joint city-county jurisdictional discussion. What does that look like? If you're within a mile of the city, should there be yet a third board that is made up of city council members and county commissioners jointly to make some of these decisions? But that's not the procedure that we have today. We do realize, though, that this is something we should be looking at, and we have begun those discussions.
Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and of course, I thank you, Eric and Haven. I mean, we have a tough decision because it's obvious that we have a concern about the sprawl. I mean, one of my questions was regarding fire and safety and law enforcement, and that wasn't originally answered, but I believe it was cleared up by the applicant. And I understand also, I'd love the county commissioner to understand and the planning. One of the things that we're concerned, and we have been concerned with, is the way these properties are developed, in the sense that we look for community common areas, and we want to make sure that is part of the plan, and I know it has been in recent developments. So I hope that continues, and if I may, I'll make a motion to approve with the staff's recommendations.
All right. Vince made the motion to approve item 14, the preliminary subdivision plan, per the staff's recommendation or stipulations. Is there a second to that motion? Anyone? All right. Motion, John?
Substitute motion, let's postpone this until after the county decides what they're going to do. And that gives us more feedback.
Okay, the next planning commission meeting, I think, is the 27th. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Is that an appropriate meeting for notice requirements and all that?
There is no notice requirements for a plat, so your action today would be notice,
Okay.
since this is a public meeting.
John, that date work for your motion to continue?
Yes.
All right, is there a second to John's motion to continue to January 27th?
Second.
Haven seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Mike Kwasny.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. This might be a question for Mr. Skull. I guess the reason that he wants to have this before is to not hold up the process. Is that what I'm understanding? Andrew, maybe you can.
Mr. Skull.
I think we're confusing two separate processes, number one, but they all, at some point in time, align with each other. We're running two complete separate tracks down the county and down the city, and really at no point in time do the two ultimately intersect until it's all said and done. So yes, our preference is to continue to move this forward, because if the county, I don't know how it would change your decision, and maybe that's a question for you all to ponder. If the county doesn't approve the zoning, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter. So yes, we would prefer to continue to approve this and allow that process to continue forward, rather than wait and delay and then have to come back here in 21 days following where we get with the county. And there's also the potential that the county continues it. So then are we going to continue this again on the 27th? I mean, where does the lines intersect? We've been working with the county and the city on this for probably 8 months to date. So my request is to continue to move forward, to keep the process moving forward, and knowing that ultimately that decision does lie in the county, and therefore let's let the county make their decision. Let's let you guys make your decision.
Okay, then I guess then I would have a question for Vicki. All we're truly approving is infrastructure. Is that correct?
You are approving the stipulations of approval identified to the applicant what infrastructure requirements must be met, and it says, if this preliminary subdivision plan is approved, before you can advance to the final plat process, you have to secure the rezone from the county. So by approving the preliminary subdivision plan, you are in essence telling the applicant, you've got to now secure that rezone with the county. That is one of the stipulations of approval.
Okay.
All right, John?
But aren't we also approving the density?
I didn't hear what you said, John.
Aren't we actually approving the density?
You are approving this lot layout
Right.
contingent upon them securing the rezone from the county. If the rezone fails at the county, this application it's null and void. It's moot. There have been many preliminary subdivision plans approved by the Planning Commission and the Council that have never advanced. They got the grocery list of what's required. It realized it was too costly to do. They failed to secure the water and sewer that was needed. Again, a preliminary subdivision plan is a what if. We are letting this applicant know, if you want to submit a final plat to subdivide this property, here's the grocery list of things you need to do. That's what they're waiting to hear from you and the City Council. On that list is secure a rezone with the county. It's your decision if you would like to have them do that first. That would be unique. That's not something that you typically require in that order.
All right.
I don't like the fact that we're kind of blessing this spot zoning and increased density. I'm not in favor of that, but we don't decide that. But if we pass this on as accepting it, then it looks like everybody up here agrees with it.
Mr. Chair, can I add a comment to that? Specific to spot zoning, this commission has already approved preliminary subdivision plans. If you want to call it spot zoning, that has already been a precedent set. And if you look closely in Vicky's presentation, there's a subdivision to the north, there's a subdivision to the west, and a subdivision to the northeast that have already been rezoned to what the request for this property is. So there's already a precedent set that, if you want to call it spot zoning, that has already happened previously. They're all within the 3-mile jurisdiction of Rapid City.
All right, the motion on the floor is currently to continue to January 27th. Any other comments on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No? All right. Can we get a roll call just to make sure?
Braun,
No?
Herr, Ficus, Quasny, Stuck,
Yes.
Vidal,
No.
Kelly?
Arguello. I have 4-3.
All right.
And passes.
Motion passes to continue to January 27th. All right, that takes us to the end of the consent agenda. So we had one request to move item 20 up due to a person that needed to go to work. Are they still here? Okay.
Motion to adjourn. Didn't say that.
So we're gonna move item number 20 in front of item number 17, just for all those, that will allow one of the requested speakers to speak before getting on to an appointment. So item number 20. Sarah?
Item number 20 is an initial plan development overlay to expand an existing mobile home park. Going to give an overview of the project. You can see the subject property on the aerial view in front of you. This property is about 6.5 acres in size, and it's located south of Garden Lane and east of South Valley Drive. You can see the existing development on the property now. There's 14 existing mobile home units as well as a garage structure and a stick-built home. The applicant ultimately with this proposal is applying to expand this mobile home park to include a total after the development of up to 45 mobile home spaces. And I'll talk a little bit more about the site plan after we go through the rest of the slides. This slide is showing the zoning of the property. It's zoned medium density residential district, and the surrounding land uses include property zoned medium density residential district as well as property zoned low density residential. The future land use for this property is urban neighborhood. And this is the city's major street plan. It shows South Valley Drive as a collector. I do want to point out, however, that South Valley Drive, this segment of roadway is not annexed into the city limits. It is within the county's jurisdiction. That starts up at about Johnson Ranch Road and goes south to Fairmont. Here is a site plan that shows how they're going to add units to the site. Let me start on this one. Point out a few things on the site plan here. So this property was developed in the county and then annexed into the city at a later time. So because of that, there are non-conforming elements of the existing development. And what will happen is that the existing development will remain, as long as it's in place where it is now, it will stay non-conforming. However, in the future, as those existing units are replaced when they meet the end of their useful life, they will be replaced in a manner which meets the city requirements for separation, for setbacks between them. So this area here along South Valley Drive is where the existing development is. That's what you'll note from the aerial view. And then this area here is where they're proposing the new units, and those will all be built to meet city standards as they are put in. A couple other things to note about their site plan. They're providing quite an amount of landscaping that'll create a screen along the eastern and northern sides. They're also proposing a 6-foot privacy fence to occur around the boundary of the property here. That's not required by the code, but they are including that as part of their plan. Also not required as part of the code, but something that they're including is an outdoor space for the residents of this neighborhood. They are meeting the minimum lot area size as well as the parking requirements. Something else to note about this proposal is that large portions of this property are located within the 100-year floodplain. So because of that, they will need to secure a floodplain development permit to ensure that any future development in this area complies with those regulations and meets minimum criteria for safety standards in the floodplain. Go through a couple of actually, before I go to site photos, so this would be sort of the long-term plan for the property. As the existing units are replaced in the future, they will meet city requirements. And of course, here's the new development is in this area. So this is standing on Garden Lane, looking south into the development. You can see the existing units are here and the open space where the new units will be located. This is looking to the east on Garden Lane, looking to the north at the existing development behind it, and looking towards the west towards South Valley Drive. So this is at the northern terminus of the property. Then if we go down to the southern terminus of the property, you can see they have their plan development sign posted. This would be looking north along South Valley Drive. And then this is looking into the development. This is a private roadway here to serve the mobile home park, looking to the east. And this is looking south along South Valley Drive and looking across South Valley Drive towards the west. So staff is recommending approval of this plan. This is an initial plan development, I do want to point out. So they still have some further work to do as far as design of infrastructure and utilities. Those will be submitted as part of the final plan development. And since this property is located within the Rapid Valley Sanitary District, the Sanitary District will have jurisdiction over reviewing those utility plans, but that will all occur as part of the final plan development. We are recommending that it be approved with stipulations, and I can take any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Sarah. We have a number of speaker requests on this item. We'll go to Pat Jones.
Good morning. Pat Jones, 219 Cleveland Street, Rapid City. Here today wearing my Ward 1 City Council hat. A lot of concerns about this project at this time. In the year and a half that I've been on the council, I've probably spent more time hearing concerns about things going on South Valley Road than I have any other part of my ward. It's such a very unique area. Some of it's county, some of it's cities, some of it's been annexed in, some of it's up to code, some isn't. And so there's a lot of anomalies attached to that South Valley Road area and both sides of South Valley Road. There's been some excellent terms used today in the course of your discussion on other projects that very much apply to this one. You've talked about spot zoning, urban sprawl. Mr. Vidal used one of the best words, communities. This project doesn't seem to support the community feel that a lot of the residents out there want. As you look at the map of it, I look at that and it looks like a package of Oreos all stacked up one on top of another. Nothing against Oreos, I'm a big fan. But the stacking of those things, of the trailers and the sprawl that is indicating, doesn't seem to support a community feel that a lot of people want out there. I received many phone calls and emails from people that live in that area saying they are trying to encourage their neighbors to clean up out there and to try to make it more attractive and pleasant place to live, because a lot of the areas are not up to code out there, and so there isn't a strong desire from some people to clean it up. So there's several concerns I'd like to bring forward about this project before you consider moving it forward or not. There's been quite a few calls for law enforcement out in areas owned and managed by this current company, and there's concern about keeping a safe and proper area for people to live and thrive. That's one of the comments on the documents that allow for variances and changes in what goes on, is it has to be supportive of a community and a safe place for people to live. And so there are a lot of concerns about that. And before this moves forward, I would ask that the police department and or the county sheriff's office be allowed to comment on the amount of calls for service to that area, specifically owned and managed by the requester. It appears that there's going to be a terrific amount of traffic that goes there. South Valley Road, again, a lot of concerns about traffic out there. We have been involved in trying to find ways to make that road safer. Originally, of course, it was just a county road, 2 narrow lanes. Over the years, it's been redone and piled on, and it's high now, and there are drainage issues with it, and et cetera. Speed is an issue out there. We've tried to come up with various projects to address the safety issues and speed out there, and one of the concerns of the residents and that I'm bringing forward is adding this much traffic. It's going to impact South Valley Road a great deal more, and so there's some concerns that go along with that. There's also a question about actual ownership and who is bringing this project forward. There's concern as to what is listed here in item 20 is not the actual owner, or there are other owners involved in the project, and I think that needs to be cleared up before it goes forward as well. So there's a lot of concerns out there. Fire and safety were mentioned. The response out to that area, Rapid City Police Department, Pena County Sheriff's, street cleaning and road cleaning, all those things. There's so many crossovers out in that area that adding something this big and this dense out there will do nothing but complicate the issues that are already on the table in that area. So in my opinion, and listening to many of the residents live out there, this is too big of a project. It doesn't support the desire of a lot of the residents out there to improve the area. They are certainly concerned about traffic and sprawl and things that are going to impact their quality of life at this time. So I would ask that you strongly consider putting this on hold until some of those questions are addressed, and you all can have a better feeling as to what actually the project is before it moves forward. So I thank you very much for moving the project up. I appreciate that very much, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have for me. I am going to stay for all the discussion on number 20, and then I will have to leave to go to work. But I do appreciate you allowing myself and others to speak. Thank you.
John, do you have a question for?
I only see one access into this property. This is for staff. I only see one access into the property off of South Valley Drive. And it doesn't look like they're proposing any more. It's over 40 houses. Don't we require 2?
I can, let me show you on the site plan here. So this is South Valley Drive. Garden Lane provides 2 of the access points into the proposed new development. So one coming through here, and then further another access point through here. As we travel south on South Valley Drive, this is the 3rd access point into the property, and this is not a private roadway. This is a, I'm sorry, this is not a public roadway. This is a private roadway that serves the mobile home development. So they also have access along here. The applicant will need to coordinate with the Pennington County Highway Department should they ever in the future require additional access points onto South Valley Drive. They'll need permits for that, and we'll coordinate with the county. Does that answer your question, Mr. Hare?
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. And just a comment about that, and I appreciate what Sarah just showed you. There's a grocery list, Vicki, if I may borrow your term, of requirements that this developer is being asked to do. And because of the questions of ownership and who is actually bringing it forward, and a track history of things happening in area owned or controlled by this requester, that raises our concern level even more, that will these things be met? Will they actually be done, or will they just, will just be pushed forward and done? So there's a lot of concerns. If they can be met and everything's satisfied, then the project has potential. I certainly understand as a city council member the need for housing. We all understand that. But it needs to be done right. You folks have talked about every single issue as to why this project should be a concern. And so those issues, along with the questions of ownership, I think really indicate a very slow pace on this project and really make sure we know what we're doing. Thank you.
Eric, I guess, do you have a question for Councilman Jones, or we also have other public comment here?
I do not. I'm going to withdraw it was answered. Thank you.
Okay. Jay Schmidt?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair and everyone. My name is Jay Schmidt, live at 2333 South Valley Drive. This area that I had circled right here, you're going to hear other things. I don't want to pinpoint the exact one, but one of these areas is a drug trailer. They have been selling drugs out of that trailer for years. We have worked with law enforcement over and over and over. We got license plates, we got everything done to try to handle this mobile home park. Law enforcement did their due diligence. They agree that there's something going on, but they can't get enough stuff to actually go in and check anything. I have had people from this mobile home park getting in fights and getting drunk in my front yard. Had a husband beat up his wife right in the middle of my yard. My wife went out at 4 o'clock in the morning to let the dog out. Just right next to me, there was 2 other people standing there behind a tree trying to go to the trailer to get drugs. We've, like Councilman Jones has expressed, we've had nothing but speed problems over there. We have a drainage issue out there.
down Garden Lane, that road there is a city road, but it's not maintained by the city. Either side, going to the west or going to the east. Us as residents, we plow our own roads out there because we don't get nothing from the city, and the rest of South Valley is county. So the county does take care of South Valley by our place, but not the side streets. And matter of fact, on Garden Lane on my side, it's all gravel, it's not even paved. You go to where they're talking about putting these access points in there, Garden Lane isn't even hardly wide enough for 2 vehicles right now to go down that stretch, and that road is just tore up. And then you look at South Valley as a whole, that thing needed to be milled down and completely redone years and years and years ago. They've just overlaid it, and now it sets up so high, when the water drains, it goes down into my neighbor's driveway, and it just floods his whole driveway. It comes down into mine and floods my area and my ditch. And if my memory serves me correctly, June, we're looking at the 50th anniversary of the flood. That whole area right there was flooded back in '72. There was people having to pull off their trailers. Unfortunately, there was dead bodies floating by in that area. This is not an area that we need to be expanding and putting more people in there and taking a chance. So I appreciate your time and letting me talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Dottie Krudhoff, I hope I didn't screw your name up too badly.
I am Dottie Krudhoff, and I live at 2403 South Valley, directly across from this proposal thing. My life's been impacted for at least the last 3 years with the drug trailer house. I have 3 notebooks full of license plate numbers that I have taken. I've got pictures. I have over 1,000 pictures of drug deals being made over there. Which I only printed off 88. If you guys would like to look at them, you can. I've got kids that walk out with backpacks full all summer long, and I've got pictures of those kids. They have bonfires right there in that number 14 trailer. Anytime, day or night, I've got pictures of that. I've made numerous police phone calls about what they're doing. I've had Deputy Dupree and Marco Glass. They've come to my house. They've set up cars with video and taken pictures for weeks. Marco Glass put a camera on the side of my house to watch that trailer house. They've done trash pull on that property. There's no evidence in that trash pull, but I know darn well that they're burning all their evidence in that burn pit because it stinks to high heaven when they're doing it. Last summer, there were 19 cars that showed up at that trailer house in a 3-hour period. I've got pictures of all of them, their license plate numbers, everything. I'm tired of this trailer house. One of the speakers that will be coming up, his father-in-law lives right directly across from me. His father-in-law knows about the drug problem that's there. He also knows what the drug problem is there. Yeah, I discussed it with him one summer, and all miraculously in September, 10 of the people that lived in that trailer house got moved out. But I can testify today that drug trailer house is still a drug trailer house. They don't come up during the day anymore like they used to. They're showing up at 4:30 as soon as it gets dark. I can tell you who all the big players are in this trailer house. Marco Glass, Deputy Dupree, when she had her camera up out there in my driveway for a week, she goes, yeah, we know there's something going on, but we can't prove anything at this point. We have bigger things for our county dollars to go to. So that told me right there, they don't care about the drug problem. Then I had got to Marco Glass to my house. He sat in my living room and watched that trailer, and he goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe all this. A veteran showed up driving a red Cadillac. He got out, he had a bag, and you could tell it was prescription bottles. He was selling them. his medicine he gets from the VA. I can guarantee you that's what he's doing there. So that happened. Christmas Eve, 10:30 something in the morning. I'm going to play you a video, and all you're going to hear is the sound. But this is, no, I'm serious. I want you, it's 7 seconds. 7 seconds.
Go for it.
That happened in my front yard from a speeder. He wiped out my whole complete front yard. We have an issue of speeders on that street. It's unbelievable. Let me shut this off. And I'm not kidding. He took out my whole front yard. Everything's gone. My tree that I've had there for years is gone. It looked like a tornado went through my front yard. Our street is not set up for all this that goes on there. You're going to add another 45 trailers to that area? 3 people per trailer, that's 145 people extra with cars driving out of just down from my house through there to go either direction. It's crazy what goes on out there. But if you want to see my pictures, you can. I mean, I've got them.
All right.
It's craziness. And I don't want another 45 trailers across from my house at all.
Thank you for your comments, certainly vivid. Stephen Klotz, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you for taking the time to allow me to speak. My name is Stephen Klotz. I reside at 2726 Garden Lane, which is directly across Garden Lane from this proposed development. I'd like to speak for a minute about quality of life. The development of this type will increase traffic. It will increase noise, it will increase light, it will increase trash, it will increase pollution, and it will increase crime. I'd also like to address the idea of the road structure out there. I do live on Garden Lane, and if you were creative enough, you could maybe call it a 2-lane road, but it is certainly not of sufficient quality or width, nor does it possess curbs, gutters, or subsurface drainage in order to support this development. There will be one entrance pretty much across the street from me, and another one just a few hundred feet down the road. Let's see. The issue of South Valley Drive is very realistic. Several times, and I've been there since 2015, South Valley Drive has closed due to flooding. Rapid Creek comes along there, and the drainage is insufficient to allow that road to be accessed all the time. That will limit emergency services, ingress and egress, and all of those problems to this proposed development. The road quality on Garden Lane it's insufficient. Not only is it not wide enough, but it's not structurally sound enough to take this increase in traffic. I believe that Rapid City should stop allowing this type of development. We're a city that is growing, and we're growing rapidly. And we want to give the right image to the people that are coming to our area, and that is that we are a community that is going to improve, not decrease, the value of our properties and the quality of life of our residents. I enjoy watching the deer go through that pasture. I enjoy that family of turkeys that's there every year. I even enjoyed that coyote who came across that property not too long ago. But these types of things would no longer exist with this development. I believe that this development would lower my property values and the property values of every resident there that has a stick-built house. the type of development with mobile homes tends to go down in value, and it decreases the value of all the properties around it. Have any of you driven down there on Kennedy Estates and actually seen what it looks like? You ought to try it sometime. The people who are proposing this development fail to maintain their property. It's ugly, it's deteriorated. We don't need that. They do not have a track record of doing what is needed for our community. The floodplain exists down there, as you know, has been told. In 1972 is when it was established, and of course that was a monumental disaster to our area. That's not going to get any better. As development continues to happen in our community generally, that will increase the amount of water that runs off because, well, concrete doesn't absorb any water. The National Weather Service came out a couple years ago, a few, let's say, and they forecast that generally what we will see, and I know it's hard to believe in a drought year like we've had, but what we will see is an increase in the volume of rain and the increase of intensity. This leads to increased flooding. Okay. I don't think that putting people in potential danger is a good idea. And regardless of what is done to mitigate a 100-year floodplain, it's going to get worse. And someday you might wind up to find out that you've created a situation where people have died because of these actions. That's all I've got to say. Any questions?
Thank you. Councilman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am a Ward 1 councilman too. I can concur with Alderman Jones. This area, South Valley Drive, is undergone in the last few years a lot of stress. A lot of stress from the increased density in their neighborhoods there. Some of the developers to the south have spent millions of dollars taking care of some of the drainage in that part of South Valley Drive. And you see the passion from the people that live here, because they've really gotten the short end of the stick because of the county-city friction that's happening over there. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen since I've been a council person. The road's not annexed, if you can believe that. Both sides of the road, to a certain extent, are annexed. You go farther to the south, some of the land's annexed, some of it's not annexed, but the road's not annexed, partly. Part of the road's annexed, part of it's not. We've worked, Alderman Jones especially has worked diligently to try to get this neighborhood in a better position. It would behoove the owner, if they're even around here, of this trailer court, to try to work with these people. They've had no consideration for what's gone on in that neighborhood. I'm a landlord myself. I understand when you get people in your neighborhood that are disrupting the rest of the neighborhood, you should do something about it. You have every right to do something about it. My concern is echoed by the neighbors. I don't typically interject into these, but I see the passion coming, and it's hard to understand if you've not had the history of what's happened over there. And I'm not sure how it worked with ex parte and that type of stuff for commissioners to see this area, see these roads, see what's going on over there. It's a quagmire. It's very frustrating for the gal who was talking earlier. You can see her passion of what's going on. It's real. It's really real. We've been trying. Alderman Jones and myself have gotten to the point we've added streetlights over there. We're trying to address some of the traffic issues because there is increased traffic from what's happened on Johnson Ranch and stuff like that. But those guys have spent a lot of money trying to be good neighbors. They worked with the neighborhood. They met with the neighborhood. This particular area, I'm not sure has met with the neighborhood at all. They've tried to work with them on what's happening in that trailer park now, and that's my concern, that would continue. I don't want to try to influence your decision one way or another. I'm just stating the facts of what I deal with on a daily basis. About every one of these people got me on speed dial. They got Pat on speed dial, trying to figure out a way to address what's happening in the neighborhood, but you need everybody in the neighborhood to participate. So, and I just wanted to say that because I seen, to try to help understand why there's such a passionate draw from the neighborhood here. So, and I appreciate you allowing me that latitude. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. We have a couple more speaker requests. Bruce Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bruce Rook. I live at 2702 Garden Lane. What everybody said here today is true. I've lived out there 20 years. The people that live in the stick-built structures around this proposed trailer court take a lot of pride in their buildings. I've added on to my buildings, my house. I had a garage. I have called law enforcement probably in the last 3 years 20 times. And what's it in reference to? It might not be reference to this trailer, but it's a reference to one of these trailers in this trailer park. 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard blood-curdling screams coming from one of those trailers that are on the back side of that trailer park. Law enforcement showed up in droves, made an arrest. I don't know the details of it. As far as South Valley Drive goes, I'm on the corner of South Valley Drive and Garden Lane. When they redid South Valley Drive and they retopped it, resurfaced it, the company that did the resurfacing recommended to the city or county, we don't know who, that it be milled down at least 6 inches. It was not. Asphalt was laid on top of asphalt. So I poured a concrete driveway because my driveway, my garage, and my house was flooding because of how high the road sat to our property. It never used to sit that high when we purchased that property. So they didn't remill it. I poured a concrete driveway. The city came in and said, we're raising your taxes. I said, no, you're not. I had our representative come out, look at it. I have pictures of my flooded driveway, and he's like, where's your driveway? And I said, exactly. It looked like a pond. So they haven't fixed it. It's a Band-Aid. The bridge that goes down South Valley Drive floods at least twice a year, where the law enforcement has to shut the bridge off. People routed either way. It used to be one way in on South Valley Drive, one way out. Now that connects to Catron Boulevard. The proposal, you see the trailers in here, 44 trailers. You've seen how tight they were put into that trailer park. And one gentleman mentioned earlier about the fire in Colorado. It's waiting to happen here, folks. It's waiting to happen here. And there is not access. South Valley, or Garden Lane, and the pictures you showed up here, you can see the deterioration of the road. It's not maintained by the city. It's not maintained by the county. We were actually told by the city when we called them that it was a homeowner-owned road. And I said, okay, so we can block it. Then they started backpedaling. We got confirmation that it is a city-owned road, not maintained by the city, not maintained by the county, but it's plowed by the residents. And so the traffic up there is tenfold from what it used to be. It's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Average car speed through there is at least 40 miles an hour. They had a speed study done earlier in the year. They had several cars. The fastest car going 97. Garden Lane is a single-lane road. It could be a double-lane road, but it's a single-lane road. And if you go down that road, you can pass 2 cars, but you have to pull off inside of the ditch. So this proposal is not a good fit for that area. It really isn't. It's in a 100-year floodplain. 2 years ago, when that area flooded, all those trailers were affected. It's not being fixed. The cities are not addressing any of the issues out there. And we battle it, and we battle it. And I've met with the city. We fought annexation. The city met with us, had a big meeting, said, hey, congratulations, you're going to be annexed. We said, no, we don't want to be annexed. We took it to a vote of the city. The residents out there took a vote to the city. A lot of work has went to try to prevent this. What have we gained from being in the city? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. We're a donut hole. That's what we're called, a donut hole. Some of it's city, some of it's county. But we can't get any clarification of what's owned by who and who plows what. I've seen city plows come down South Valley Drive and raise their plow when it hits county road. Same thing with county. I've seen them raise their plows. It's ridiculous. And now we got to deal with this? No. We are going to fight this to the end, folks. We're not going to give up here. And if you approve this today, I'm going to file appeal today. We're not going to give up on this. It's going to lower our property taxes, and we've put too much time and too much pride into our houses out there to have this happen. And these are not good neighbors. The trailers are not maintained. And there's junk and stuff around these trailers. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Questions?
Thank you. I'm not seeing any. Appreciate your comments, though, and we'll call up if we have any.
Thank you.
Joe Maylander.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joe Maylander. I'm the lead engineer on the project and representing the owner. The owner is Impact Communities. They own a number of manufactured home communities around the area. So just to provide some other information on this project, as described by staff, our request is to add, for the approval to add new homes to this property. I would disagree with the label of sprawl on this. This is infill of an existing undeveloped property. The motivation for this is purely the increase in demand for housing in the area. And so the owner has received a lot of requests for new housing, and that's what they're attempting to address with this project. The proposal is to add 30 new homes. So there's 15 lots, 14 homes out there currently. The proposal would add 30 new homes within the undeveloped area. There would be new roads, new sanitary, sewer, new water main, new storm sewer all throughout this development. There is no new access proposed onto South Valley. They're just using the existing, and that existing access would be improved with a hard surface roadway. They're also proposing a screening around the property. There would be a 6-foot privacy fence around the north and western boundary, landscape screening along those boundaries as well. And I just say I'm working with Impact Communities on a number of properties. In fact, they own Cimarron Park out in the county. And at that property, they took that over. There was a bunch of deferred maintenance to that, and they've now spent over $800,000 putting in new water, new sewer, new storm throughout. So I don't know about all the past issues, but I know this is an owner that puts a lot of money into their projects and doesn't cut corners on that. Again, there's no new access proposed on South Valley, and so I understand that there is speeding and there's issues with the road, but that's not due to these homes. And when you look at the traffic study on this, and we'll go through all that as part of the final development, manufactured housing is not a huge producer of traffic. So even though there will be 30 new homes, I think you're looking at, and I don't want to get the numbers too far, but you're looking at 90, I don't want to go too far there. 4 trips per day is what I believe the traffic study says on each one of these homes. So a pretty minor impact to what is a very busy road. And that traffic's not coming from the manufactured housing. I believe it's coming from the south. It appears to be somewhat of a bypass for a lot of the residents out there. This is just the initial hearing on the land use. There will be a lot of engineering that goes into designing all of these utility systems and addressing the drainage concerns out there. We realize this is in the floodplain, and there's really no better housing type to put in a floodplain than manufactured housing, because you have the ability to elevate it, and the piers are much less restrictive on floodplain than you would a solid wall house or a stick-built home. So if this initial hearing is approved and it is supported by staff, a lot of final engineering will be done, and it will come back to the city for review. And I do appreciate your consideration of this request, and I'm here to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you. Haven?
I don't know, I've got questions for you, but it appears there's some issues here. I know Alderman Jones and Weifenbach and Kinsley's office maybe are working on. It seems a little uncomfortable to deny it based upon the past activities that have gone on in this park, but that certainly is a concern of mine, and apparently a lot of people here too. Maybe for Vicki, I know the city has some pretty strict rules, covenants in the ordinance regarding manufactured homes. And I don't know whether that would be helpful to kind of hit some of the high points of that, but I know that changes the character of these manufactured parks considerably with the new rules that they must meet.
Mr. Chair.
Vicki?
An excellent point. And just for clarification, I heard a lot of folks say that they're going to add 45 new mobile homes. They're not. They would be adding about 31 for a total of 45, just so that we're all talking about the same thing here. But when you are constructing a mobile home park in the city limits, or you're adding on to one that's been annexed in, the part that is being expanded must be constructed to city design standards for a mobile home park. So we're talking paved surfacing, guest parking, patio area for every mobile home space, storage locker for every mobile home space, minimum spacing between units, minimum spacing to that access road, and then securing that open space on a ratio to ensure that there is ample area for children to play that might be residents of the mobile home park. As Sarah stated in her presentation, the existing units are legal nonconforming. They came into the city from the county with that design. If they should replace those units in the future, then each space, one at a time, would have to be redesigned to also meet city design standards. And this is the initial that would be laying out what those standards are. Great question.
And obviously, if we would deny the application, the existing park with 15 or however many manufactured homes that exist today, that use would continue. And the problems that the community members here have voiced obviously would have to be resolved. It appears that from the overhead photo that there's manufactured homes to the south, immediately to the south border of this property. Is that correct?
Sarah?
That's correct. You're noticing that the property boundaries here, and then south of this on different property is additional mobile home units.
And just as an observation, obviously, we as the planning commissioner don't have any authority over a lot of the problems that apparently are occurring in this park. That's something that somebody else has to deal with.
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
You know, let it be said, this is the reason why we have public meetings. Obviously, as we've been working with the new owners, it's exciting to think that we might get a reface of this older mobile home park. I don't know that any of staff was aware of some of the comments that have been shared today, and so I do applaud that we do have these public meetings and we get to see what the neighborhood is experiencing. In looking at this and knowing that we would get some infill development, we do need additional housing. It is a minimal impact on the street section, but there were great comments today, and we do need to look at Garden Lane and those access points to see if there needs to be improvements, if there's going to be expansions, and that improvements needs to ensure that the design of those streets does not further cause drainage issues to the residents on the opposite side of that road. So I'm grateful for everyone that showed up today. In going forward, if it is your desire to support this, we certainly would share with the applicants that these things need to be addressed. As far as the crime issues go, we will pass this on and encourage our police chief to actually go out and watch this meeting so that they're fully aware of what these residents are experiencing. That seems to be something that needs to be addressed today, regardless of this application. And perhaps the owners would like to indicate how they're going to be addressing maintaining some of the behavior of their tenants so that that type of thing doesn't continue.
We do have a speaker request from a representative of the owner. I'll call Timothy Hayes. Maybe you could identify, just, you say new owner.
Exactly.
That means there's an old owner, but first
Okay,
identify
so
yourself personally.
The legal name was Terra Kennedy LLC, but it's owned by Impact Communities, and we own 200 some odd communities around the country. I can testify specifically that we are not a typical mobile home landlord. We come into our parks and we clean them up very, very well. In fact, a good testimony of that is the Cimarron Project that Joe Melander had briefed us on. In the matter of 1 year, we began that 1 year, and Pennington County, before we began, was basically saying, we are not going to let you put in any new homes until we clean up this community. We cleaned up this community. We not only cleaned up the community, but we installed new infrastructures, new water, new sewer, new drain fields. We're paving the park, which was a dirt road community before. So, you know, to answer some of the questions about our culture and our values, I almost want to just say, Impact Cares is a good label that we put when we go to these board meetings so that the council can see what our culture and what our values are. We have a Humanitarian Department that the whole existence is just to lose money by putting more money into homes for people that cannot handle the finances of handicap ramps. And we in one weekend turn a community around, and the reputation with that by getting volunteers from local missions and churches. We have our own in-house teams that come in from around the country to clean up these communities. In one weekend alone, we did this at Cimarron Park, and in one weekend alone, we painted something like 20 or 30 homes and built handicap ramps. And this is all at our cost. None of this cost is being presented to the homeowners of these of their homes. So, affordable housing is what we're trying to encourage. I'm a senior project manager, so I'm the one that executes all these contracts and executes these projects around the country. And I can tell you that we upgrade to better than the requirements that are required by the cities and the counties. So, there are certainly some engineering points that we can add into this that we certainly want to help, and we want to clean up these communities, 100%. That's what we're standing for. As far as the other comments, again, we can't necessarily, we do what we can to try to clean up, but we also have to understand that people have, their own way of living and whatnot. We want to try to create our community so that it's a good community where the reputation is well. Our residents actually during these events of Impact Cares, and you can go on a browser and type in Impact Cares, and you would certainly get an understanding of what our values and culture is about. By the time we leave a community with Impact Cares, not only is the community cleaned up and the market value alone looks much better because the homes are painted and the ramps are done and new decks are put on, all at our costs. Not only that, but the more important thing here I think I'd like to point out is that the residents themselves, because they're volunteering with our Impact Cares team, the residents themselves, by the end of the day, they're actually waving to each other, and these are people that never knew each other before. So it does encourage not only, cleaning up the community, but includes that team effort and that, that sense of camaraderie that they're all in this together. And I just can't say enough about that portion of it. But as far as the understanding of what we're trying to do with this community, yes, it has been ran down in previous years, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're petitioning to this, because we want to bring this whole community up, clean up some of these issues that may or may not be happening. We can't obviously help with the county and the city problems with, maybe the roads and whatnot. We're certainly willing to help in any way we can to make that more a benefit to the city and the county. One of the items that we've had put into this design was the privacy fence around the community. That should help also maybe satisfy some of the suspicious eyes and things that may or may not be going on. Again, these are people that are trying to find affordable housing in a community that they can be a part of and be together with their fellow residents. I don't typically answer any of the design questions. That's why we have an engineer. But I'm the one that contracts the projects out, and I can guarantee that when we start a project, it is done right, and the community is turned 100% different than the way it first came.
Mr. Hayes, I appreciate it. We have a lineup of commissioners that may have a question for
Please,
you, but
please.
we'll ask.
I'm not a real great speaker, so,
Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one quick question, but then I need to follow up here. Are these lots for sale or are they for rent?
Typically, we like to sell them. In fact, we have a manager, our community manager is here also, and she can answer more of the questions regarding the operations of our parks. So she knows, they know more about the residents and the types of residents, whether they're owned or rented. I believe this community is all owned, but again, I'd have to refer to her.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
And I understand, it's typical. And
Sure.
first of all, thank you for
I'm a construction
being
guy.
here.
So.
And that's okay. Thank you for being here, but because I do have other questions and I don't want to use my time for that. It's interesting that I ran for city council and for Ward 1, as a matter of fact. And as a matter of fact, I actually walked this neighborhood some years ago, soliciting votes. What I want to, and I know we've had some issues with the South Valley Drive in the past. I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So this is nothing new when it comes to those issues, and we've tried to resolve these. So it's, I'm happy to see that the residents are here to express what's going on. What I have concerns with at this point is the same concerns that they had years ago and we're having today. I assume that there is no one from law enforcement here. Am I correct? And they could have been here, but it may have been because, as Vicki already pointed out, some of these issues were just being brought up today. So I understand the residents' concerns, and I can sympathize. I can empathize. Like I said, I've walked this neighborhood, and I know what they're talking about. With that in mind, I have to say at this point, there are too many questions unanswered, and we won't be able to get them answered today, because first of all, I'd love to talk to law enforcement about some of this in public. And from my point of view at this point, I'm not prepared to move forward. I would love to submit a motion to move it to our next meeting, but Vicki?
Vicki?
Mr. Chair, if the Planning Commission does determine to continue this to your January 27th meeting, we would try to have a representative from the law enforcement here to answer questions.
I'll offer that motion now if they want to substitute it later, but I motion that we continue this to our January 27th meeting.
Okay, Vince made the motion to continue item number 20 to the January 27th meeting. Is there a second? I'll second. Mike Kwasny second it? For sure. So the motion was made by Vince, seconded by Mike Kwasny to continue to January 27th. Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple questions I have. How long have you owned this property now?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I would say I've only been with the company for a couple of years, so I'm sure that it was, and I was out here a year ago when, and looked at this, and when we did the Cimarron Project. So I don't know if I have an answer for you on that, as far as how long we've actually owned it.
You've owned it through the...
Typically, a 5-year mark is what mobile home parks are mortgaged for. I don't know if it was refinanced or if there was, you know, if we've owned it previously.
You've owned it with the existing problems that are taking place right now.
Yeah, but again, I'd have to answer that. Anita, our CM, would have to answer that because these are private-owned homes. So in essence, if we're having trouble with certain members of these private-owned homes, you know, we can only enforce our position so much. You know, law enforcement certainly has to, you know, get involved in this. So it's kind of like if it's a private-owned home, how would it be any different than any other residence in any other community? And maybe I'm wrong in speaking out of turn here, but again, you know, we can fix what we can fix, but maybe, you know, certainly we want to help in any way we can. And we'll work with the county too on some, maybe the road issues. Maybe there's a partnership where we can help with defraying some of the costs of that road. I mean, again, there's other options available to us, but we need to get past this next milestone in order to go to the next level.
So you're proposing a new development here. Are you going to take the existing, it looks like you're moving everything around. Are you taking the existing and asking them to leave? They might own the home, but...
No, we pay for the cost. If we are relocating a home, then we would pay for all of that cost, including any, you know, time that they are out of the home. We would put them up in hotels or whatever during that relocation. But I also want to point out too that our plan shows the existing homes as being existing. More than likely, and we have to go in with that because if we, you know, said we were going to replace all of the older homes, which typically is what happens. You know, when we get into these projects, a lot of times we evaluate the existing homes as we go. If they're private-owned homes, we would more than likely make deals with them and trying to get them an upgrade in their home, maybe to, and then, you know, there would be partnerships and deals made that way. If they are rented homes, which I don't believe this park is, we would, you know, basically if the home is not past its worth, you know, its useful life, then we would just replace the homes because we want our community's market value to be there as well. And I agree, there are some not so great looking homes there. So let's see what we can do about cleaning them up and getting them out and getting some new homes in. That's typically what we do. We've done that at Cimarron. We've replaced a lot of the older homes with newer models and even expanded the park by six lots at that park.
Okay.
We own 5, I believe, in Rapid City area.
Okay. But you've established that you have a history here already with what's existing.
Yes.
And so then the concern as moving forward, I don't know that a lot's going to change. I know that you have limited ability to fix, but if you own the land, there are things it seems like you could do to address some of these. And that's not our position. That goes to law enforcement, as you say. My concern, there are some concerns with the amount of housing that we're putting in a floodplain. I do know of a trailer park that was down along Omaha Street that got flooded, and it was pretty disastrous when the 72 flood. So I have concerns with putting that many along here, along with the streets. The streets just do not seem like they're ready to handle a development like this. So those are my concerns, and like I said, I second the motion, and there's a lot of things I think we need to answer going forward to really see what this is. There's valid concerns by the community here that really need to be addressed.
Fair point.
John?
For staff. Now, conditional uses permits are required for mobile homes, right? Is there one on this property? Or are we going to create or expand a new one for this as one condition?
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
This was grandfathered in as a mobile home park. So they're allowed to remain in operation as is until they either start replacing those existing mobile homes with larger ones, or they're expanding the mobile home park. So this is the first time we've looked at it and reviewed city design standards.
So we are going to require a conditional use permit.
That's what they're doing here today. This, the reason that they have presented this as a planned development, which is a type of conditional use permit, is
misleading.
because there's land area deviations that may need to be considered, and the planned development serves to meet the requirements as a conditional use and to address some of these existing encroachments.
Which, as a conditional use, it's, anybody can complain about it, right?
Correct.
Tenants, neighbors, whatever, and then it allows the ability to correct the issue or take away the permit. Correct?
I'll take it one step back. It allows the Planning Commission to determine if this is the right use in this location and whether or not it should be expanded, because it is a conditional use.
Correct. Thank you.
We're running up against 9 o'clock. If the
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commission's willing, I'd like a motion to continue past 9 o'clock. Okay. All right, Vince made the motion and Haven seconded, among others. All those in favor of keeping the meeting going past 9 o'clock, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Kelly Arroyo.
Come on, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few things for this project stand out to me, and I do have concerns. Infrastructure is number one. You know, the roads are already strained in that area. I actually grew up in a trailer in that neighborhood. I lived there as a kid, right? I know this area very well. My family owned a trailer court for 30 years as an adult, so I have a little background on that. I try not to impart my personal feelings on this stuff, but I do have issues with the roads and the conditions of the roads, the capacity. They just put it in that new development north of there. Months and months ago, we had a discussion about the strain on the roads and the traffic right at that same location. So those are my concerns. The other concern I always have with every development is common space, you know, for the community. There's one lot there on the corner as a park, and I get that. It is dense to me. Mobile homes are dense by nature, but this is extremely dense, in my opinion, for this community. And the last thing is the quality of life. You know, part of our job is to ensure that the quality of life is maintained for these new developments. I would think as an owner, you would want to work with law enforcement hand in hand. You would want to work with the neighbors. You'd want to work with the tenants that are there to improve the conditions. And what you're essentially asking us is to reward you for more of the same for bad behavior. And I'm not picking on you. In general, for us to reward you with more of the same doesn't do the community any good. The community at large, the surrounding community, it doesn't do us any good if that's going to continue. So what I didn't hear from you was a concrete plan. What is your plan to improve? Obviously, there's situations there, whether it's breaking the law or not, whether it's just ambiance. What is your plan to improve that? In good faith, I can't support this unless I hear something from you guys saying this is going to change.
I'm going to stop you here, and if Kelly's done, go to another commissioner that has comments. Eric Heikus. Again, the motion on the floor is to continue currently, just so we're out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too share some of the same biases that Kelly mentioned. I think that we may be perpetuating a poor situation here by taking this action. By saying we're all in this together, I think we may be all in this together in terms of, I'm only quoting what you said, what we're in this together are some significant social concerns and perhaps poverty. I'm not sure that's the right message that we want to send. So there's been enough testimonial by people in the neighborhood and in the surrounding areas that there's some real significant social aspect to consider here. Enough police comment and that sort of thing that I think it raises a red flag for me. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Vicki? you
Yeah,
have a
just
item?
real quickly, Mr. Chair. So, in listening to a lot of the comments from the Planning Commission, the neighborhood, and even the wonderful comments that the applicant has brought forward today, it appears that even though this is just an initial plan development, and they still would have to proceed with full design plans, that there are enough existing issues with just the 15 homes that are there, that the Planning Commission is asking for more concrete information. Will Garden Lane be improved? What will that look like? Will that southern access point be improved? What will that entail? Is there a manager living on site? Is there a number posted available to the neighborhood so that if someone witnesses something, they don't have to call the police, they call the manager, and the manager calls the police? What is the code of ethics policy for management of this mobile home park so that if they have a tenant that creates issues for the neighborhood, can they evict him? Are they doing that? What do those steps look like? And if we see that concrete plan come back, then my question to the applicant is, if the Planning Commission continues it, can you get that completed by the 27th? Or does it make sense to continue this out to the following meeting, which would be February 10th, to ensure that you've put your plans together, maybe sat down with some of the neighbors, seen what those concerns are, tried to work through the solution, and then when you stand before the Planning Commission again, we've listed all of those concerns noted today, and you've identified solutions for each one. So my question would be, can that be achieved by January 27th, or does it make sense to continue this to February 10th?
All of these plans are already in place. The community manager would be able to address them. I don't know them. I'm the construction person. So, again, that'd have to be deferred to her.
So it would be something that would need to be submitted to us for routing to the sheriff's office, the police department, public works, to those engineers that look at floodplain, so that we're all having that necessary time. If you think you can get that done to us and we can stand before the Planning Commission with answers, then it would be, again, recommending that it be continued to January 27th.
And are you, Anita, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, please. I'm Anita Altait. I'm the community manager.
Thank you.
I knew that there had been issues over there. After hearing everything today, I'm speechless. I had no idea all of that was going on over there. I would love to get together with the neighbors, and I will address that issue. And if it means terminating the tenant, then I absolutely will do that. But I did not know it was to the extent that it is. And so I will address that immediately.
I'm not, I only speak for myself, but I think I'm reading the room, or at least up here pretty well, that this isn't going to go anywhere. So your best option is continuance. Vicky's question about whether it goes to the 27th or February 10th, I guess I would ask that of you. Would it help to have a full month, or is 3 weeks enough to prepare the information on?
In order for me to terminate their lease, I actually have to give them a 30-day notice.
Sure. I think we can't get into the mechanics of managing the park. What we want to know is how it's happening, and to be honest, it's not just you. We also want law enforcement's perspective on this as
absolutely.
well.
I have not heard anything. They are welcome to call the office number. They are welcome to leave me a message if I don't answer. And there's also an emergency line. If they needed to get a hold of me, the emergency line goes directly to my cell phone. So, but I have not heard anything from any of the neighbors, and so I did not realize that it was to that extent. So I will get it addressed.
Well, I might suggest just an answer to the question. I think maybe a second meeting, February 10th, would be, that would allow everybody to do their homework, ahead of time, so we'd have the prepared. Vicki, your thoughts?
I concur, and what we'll do is we will reach out to the applicants to let them know that based on the conversation of today, here's the items that need to be addressed, and that we need them back to us by this date. Once they get them to us, they're public record for the neighborhood to look at, and we'll also route them out to the review agencies. We want to ensure that what we bring back to you at that next meeting has been vetted well, and so I do concur that that February 10th Planning Commission meeting is going to actually give the applicant a more realistic timeline to come up with solutions. It doesn't mean that they have to be acted on, but that there's an operational plan in place to ensure that these issues are being addressed.
Vince?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. Do I substitute my motion, or do I just amend it? To move it to, because my motion was to the 27th.
You can, it's a substitute motion.
I substitute my motion to continue this item to February 10th meeting for the Planning Commission.
And Mike Kwasny seconded that as well. Mike, do you have another comment?
Are we, I guess as we move forward, I want to thank the people that stood up and made known what's going on. The neighborhood, it takes a community to develop a good town, and I would like to thank the people for standing up, coming forward, addressing the issues that are here. And I think we truly need to address the street issues is a big one as we move forward. So thank you again for coming up. Continue the march, and we'll go from here.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the motion to continue? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're continued till February 10th. Item 17.
Item 17 is an initial plan development overlay to allow mini warehousing. The proposed development is to occur on a lot that's about 12.11 acres in size. You can see it on the aerial view. One second. The property is located south of East Oakland Street and west of Campbell Street, north of East Fairmont Boulevard. It has a zoning classification of general commercial district within an area that transitions from residential to commercial and then on to industrial. As you can see on the map in front of you, there's industrial property located east of this property and also south. So it is an area that includes a mix of commercial, industrial, and residential areas. The future land use for this property is mixed-use commercial. This is the major street plan showing Campbell Street as a principal arterial and East Fairmont Boulevard as a minor arterial. This is the site plan for the proposed project. I do want to point out that, as I mentioned, it's in the general commercial zoning district, and mini warehousing is allowed as a conditional use permit in this district. However, there are additional design criteria that has to be met, and the purpose for that really is to ensure that what could otherwise be a very industrial looking and functioning development can be a compatible fit in a general commercial area if these design criteria are implemented effectively. So to orient yourself to the site plan here, we've got East Oakland here. So north is this direction, and then this is Campbell Street going here. They'd like to add a total of 19 structures, mini warehousing structures, to occur in 2 phases. Phase 1 is on the northern portion of the lot here, kind of, I don't know that the color is reading on the screen, but this is phase 1. And then phase 2 is proposed to occur later in time, and this is along East Fairmont Boulevard. There's currently 2 accesses to the property on East Oakland Street, and with phase 2, they're proposing a 3rd access to be located here. So with the initial plan development, they are requesting 2 exceptions. The zoning code requires specific design criteria for fencing. So this code states security fencing and screen fencing shall not exceed 6 feet in height and shall be constructed of wood, decorative black, or chain link fence with slats as approved by the Planning Commission. And again, you're reviewing this either through a plan development or a conditional use permit, in this case as a plan development. The applicant would like to deviate from those standards. They are proposing to use a chain link fence with slats on the northern and western lot lines, so that would be adjacent to the residential areas here and here. And on the east and south sides of the property, they are proposing to use a decorative iron or black chain link fence is proposed. So that's here, but it would not include the opaqueness, which is required by the code. So that's the first exception. That's the exception for the screening. The second exception has to do with the exterior building materials. The code requires that exterior building materials shall be masonry, concrete, or wood, masonry, concrete, wood, or metal simulated wood siding. And the applicant is proposing to use a metal siding on the east and west wall elevations. So that's going to be, you know, these areas here. This is where the garage doors are located. And then that they would use simulated wood siding on the north and south sides. And those wall areas obviously take up much less space because they're the end walls. So that, you know, the primary building facade that's most prominent on the site is these, which are not proposed to be the wood simulated siding. So those are the two exceptions they are requesting. To help illustrate that a little bit further, here's a building elevation showing the metal siding they'd like to use and where they have the wood simulated siding. And let me scroll through to some photos that the applicant provided. These are photos of a different mini warehousing development in Rapid City near Fox Den. So they'd like to use a similar metal exterior building to this. They've also given this project as an example of the decorative iron fence in lieu of an opaque fence. Staff has looked at this and, you know, acknowledged that this area sort of transitions from residential to commercial, and there's a lot of industrial areas as well. So we could get on board with these exceptions with the same stipulations that were required for this Fox Den development, which is on the screen in front of you. And that is that the applicant provide a landscape screen along the residential areas, and that the building have some decorative elements included, and then it's not just a metal wall. And actually, if you look at this example from Fox Den here, you can see that that was required and that was provided as part of that development as well. So to summarize, we are recommending approval of this application with the stipulations that are noted. The stipulations do require that the applicant provide additional landscaping and decorative elements in order to create a visual and sound buffer from the residential areas and to ensure that the development has some sort of higher end features above and beyond what you would expect from mini warehousing in an industrial area. And I will stand for any questions. I'll also point out that the applicant is in the audience, Mr. Wardman, if you have any questions for him.
All right, thank you very much. We do have a speaker request as well from Nathan Barton. I'm sorry, Eric Hikas has a light up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to echo and reiterate some of the comments made by staff on this, in that although because there's no adjacency of unlike zoning use, there is no trigger for the buffering or spatial separation for landscape. Is that correct, Sarah?
They would be required to provide an opaque screen as part of the the underlying zoning regulations.
Okay.
What they're proposing is a chain link fence with slats along those residential areas.
Okay. My comment, just as a landscape architect, I'm going to have to do this every time, but the more buffering and spatial separation, the better. I think this is a great example of a very large open space with very similar architecture, similar structures that could use some of that spatial separation and use buffering, trees, that sort of thing, large hedges, something to change up that visual aspect from what's surrounding it, even though what's surrounding it is like zoning. I'd like to see more of what is being developed in the stipulation. So.
And that's a great comment. Thank you, Eric. With this being an initial plan development, they would provide that landscaping plan as part of the final, so we could look at it more critically at that time.
I think that would be a good best practice for projects like these. Yeah. So, thank you.
All right, as I said, there was a speaker request from Nathan Barton. If you want to come up, that'd be great.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Nathan Barton. My address is 4725 Croyle Court, which is, of course, outside the city. I am a member and representing the Southside Church of Christ, which is the property immediately to the west facing Fairmont Boulevard, 1302 Fairmont Boulevard. And we were provided information on this. We do have no objection to the overall concept of having that. That lot is obviously a prime property for the work and for the purpose that they're proposing. The only issues that we wish to address are regards to the specific items, in particular the grading located on the southwest corner of this property and the exact location of that proposed south access onto Fairmont. The reason we're concerned about that is because the terrain there drops off quite a bit, and it appears that that south entrance would require creating a fairly steep slope or even a retaining wall in order to come out with a proper grade onto Fairmont. And that is of concern with us for two things. One, it's quite close to the existing, thank you, quite close to the existing access into the congregation's property there. And number two, because of the desire apparently to make sure that that is in line with the street across on the south side of Fairmont, understand the importance of that. As you can see there, Craig Street. At the same time, it does create a situation where it's very close in there, and that would reduce the ability to do proper landscaping boundary. We already have existing landscaping along the east edge of the congregation's property there. You can see the trees in that vicinity. Oops. Along there, and we would be concerned about the impact of excavating and creating a steeper slope that would damage our own landscaping by not allowing for proper drainage or allowing for too much drainage in that area. The other item that was of concern to us, and it appears to be addressed adequately, but we do wish to make a point of that, and that is that the view shed, what we would see there in that property immediately to the east be adequate. I believe that that is properly addressed by the proposal, but again, we wish to make sure that everyone understands that. The third item is the location of the power line that is entirely located on the adjacent property, which basically, it's hard to see, but basically runs something like this. And I should point out that I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Colorado and South Dakota and other states. And one of the concerns that I would have, and I have designed and permitted similar facilities to this, both in South Dakota and in other states, is having those power line poles located right in the middle of the driveway serving those storage units is frankly just a matter of waiting for some accident to happen when somebody backs into one of those power lines, one of those poles, and takes it out. Again, that can be addressed partly through bollards and other protective measures, but I think it should be reconsidered by the architects on this property to make sure that they have come up with the best design, or possibly consider realignment of that power line. And those are the only comments that I wish to make right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you.
Appreciate it. Questions or comments from the commission on this one? I'll jump in since no one's up yet. These things bring a lot of pavement, and I ask this out of just a matter of course. All the water that collects on that pavement has to be corralled on their property and not pushed off to other properties, correct? That would be those two drainage ponds that we see on the plan.
Mr. Chair, you're absolutely right. They have to detain these flows to the historic flow that they are today. They're adding an extreme amount of impervious area, so they'll have to detain on site so that the volume and the rate of volume does not change from where it is today as those flows leave this site. Says the non-engineer in the room.
If you're going to speak, you got to use the microphone, Mr. Barton.
If I may point out that the properties to the west are uphill from the proposed development, and therefore drainage from our point of view is not a major concern. And we certainly work together with them to make sure that any drainage coming off of our property, which now is all sheet flow, would be done properly, and work together with them.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Yeah.
This is an initial plan development again, so great comments. Love when the neighborhood shows up and points out their concerns too. We will ensure that when those final plans do come in, that staff has looked closely at the concerns we've heard today.
Would you like to address us, if you can identify
Mr.
as
Chair,
well?
Commission, first, thanks for continuing in the meeting past 9 o'clock. I appreciate that.
Can you say your name and...
Yep, Ryan Wardeman, 258 Evans Lane in Spearfish. It's my brother and myself that would be doing this project. We're scheduled to close on the property next week as long as this is permissible. We're working with KTM Design on the project as well. Our requests are simply because the wood simulated siding on the sides with the doors is not practical for the buildings that we use. Trachte buildings, if RCS or Foxden or certain things on the door side, the jamb is part of the structure also. And the way they do it and they design it, the front part of the buildings there, and you can actually just go to the image. Yep, that'd be fine. And it's a perfectly smooth flat metal, and if you did a very light simulated wood from 30, 50 feet away, I personally don't believe, I haven't stood that exact distance, I don't believe you'd be able to see that much difference in it, and it's so minuscule on that side of the building. That's why we were proposing it on the ends where there are some continuous walls, you know, because that may be noticeable. As far as the fencing goes, I personally am not even a fan of chain link with slats. I think over time it deteriorates, and it you know, and maybe the commissioner with the landscape architect or engineer can help with that. But I think I like the black chain link or the black iron fence. I think it adds just a step up from a normal chain link, or especially some with barbed wire, which you see across the road, different zoning and everything. It just elevates it a touch. And I think this could be a proper buffer between a heavy industrial across the street and residential to the west, where there's traffic, there's not a ton of traffic on a regular basis. Shouldn't be any noise burden from this as a business. So we would like to just see the wood simulated siding on the continuous walls without the doors. It's very practical for us to do if that's possible. And then also in the stipulations, it's got coniferous trees 40 feet surrounding with emphasis on the residential side, if I believe. And that, I mean, we're fine with that as well. Or if it's a hedge, like you suggested, something similar to that matter, which would also alleviate the lack of the wood simulated siding on those sides. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great, thank you. Vicki, I didn't hear anything in his description of the project that I don't believe it differed from the stipulations as listed. Am I, Sarah?
One of the staff stipulations was that the exterior cladding do include like a brick or stone or some other sort of decorative element on the cladding, and they, if I understand the applicant correctly, they are requesting that not be included as a stipulation, that they receive an exception to not provide the required exterior, I'm struggling with that word today, cladding materials.
I'm looking at stipulation number 2. As written, it says, exception is hereby granted to utilize metal siding on the sidewall elevations in lieu of masonry, concrete, or wood or metal simulated wood siding, contingent on the applicant incorporating a decorative cladding element on the upper portions of the sidewall elevations. So I'm not hearing the difference, and I'm
So the
probably just
applicant,
dense.
if I'm understanding that correctly, and correct me if I'm not here, but I think the applicant is asking that we remove the decorative element requirement.
Okay, gotcha. All right, any other questions, comments from the commission on this? John?
What it was just said, I can't understand her. What was required and they want it removed?
Okay, so in item number 2, as written, the proposed stipulations for this item, there would be a requirement for decorative element above standard metal siding on the sidewalls, and the applicant is asking us to remove that requirement. Now, my issue is, I heard, what are the sidewalls? Define what the sidewalls are.
So, Mr. Chair, what
Yeah.
they're saying are sidewalls are those walls that don't have doors.
Okay.
So those are your end walls. What the applicant also said is he's on board with doing that full screen of coniferous landscaping so that you're not going to see past that anyway to get to the wall. There would be several years, though, that those trees would not provide that buffer. And this is a nice residential area directly to the west. What you have done in other storage units in general commercial, and this is the difference. If this were a truly industrial area and the property was on light industrial, they wouldn't need to ask for an exception. They could just do a metal building, you're in and out. But this is in a general commercial zoning designation, and we couldn't rezone it to light industrial up against single-family development. So the compromise is allow for storage units in GC, but have that upper scale design limited in nature because there's a cost. And we do know that there is a need in our community right now for storage lockers. There's a waiting list to get into them. So in trying to be that good partner with the applicant, our compromise is let's see some decorative element above that privacy fence that would be visible to the neighborhood. Long term, those trees will grow in and that'll be minimalized in its impact. But for several years, the landscaping that's planted today won't provide that buffer, and that decorative element would be a nice preservation of the general commercial character we're trying to preserve.
So you're saying some kind of veneer or stone, or what are you talking about?
Their choice, but either would work. Stone
From the
feature,
ground up or higher?
6 foot up, so that on the upper portion of the elevation, because remember, they have to provide a privacy fence up to 6 feet.
So it's above that is where it's going to
above
start?
it. Right.
It's a little tricky to start a veneer 6 feet up on a metal building which expands and contracts. So I think that's a crazy idea.
We've took our lead from what this planning commission has required in the past of mini warehousing in general commercial. That's where this recommendation came from.
Well, the commissions change. I think it's a crazy idea. I mean, you could change the color or something like that, but, yeah.
Haven?
The applicant submitted a exception request letter. Is that okay with the staff to go along with the exceptions that they've requested in that letter?
So the requirement is that all of the siding be decorative in nature and it not be metal. What we're saying is we're on board with some of it being metal, but some of it should be decorative as well. It's up to the planning commission. If you believe that long-term the buffering of landscaping would be fine and you want to allow just that metal siding, that's great. If you want to go along with a standard that you had established over the years that anything visible above that privacy fence have a decorative element, and we tried to let them pick what it is, because we know cost is involved in this. Then we would ask that the stipulations stand. It is giving them a large portion of the exception that they requested, but holding firm to some of that that's more visible at the upper level. And staff is fine with whatever you decide. Thank you, John.
To clarify then, staff recommendations would be consistent with what the applicant is requesting for the exceptions?
No. So he's asking to waive that upper element. He would like it to be metal in nature throughout with the elevations as presented and not have that decorative siding at that 6 foot above.
Other questions or comments? John, maybe a motion? I know, you looked like you might have one in your mind.
So John, if you do want to make the motion, based on your comments, you could approve with staff stipulations with the request that stipulation number 2 be revised to grant the exception to allow metal siding on the sidewall elevations in lieu of masonry, concrete, or wood, or metal simulated wood siding, and not have the contingency that they do an upper element of decorative siding.
That would be my motion.
All right. John made the motion then, Eric. You didn't, okay. Is there a second to that motion? All right. John made the motion to approve item 17 with the change, as Vicky eloquently stated, to stipulation number 2, and Eric seconded that motion. Haven?
What about the request for the height, the 16-foot height requirement or exception?
Mr. Chair.
Vicky or Sarah?
So we did talk with the applicant after they submitted that letter. We appreciate that they were paying very close attention to detail and wanting to make sure that they had the proper height they needed. In the general commercial district, you can have a building up to 45 feet in height. And so though they noted that they thought they needed an exception in their letter, they in fact actually do not need an exception in order to build at that height. So we're all set there. But thank you. It's a good question.
All right. Other comments, questions on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18.
Item 18 is a conditional use permit to allow on-sale liquor in conjunction with a tapas bar. If you're not familiar with that, they are small plates of food, like appetizers. The proposed project is located in the Highway 16 corridor, north of Catron Boulevard, accessed from Hope Court. Staff is recommending approval of this project. We don't have any concerns with this. We did bring it forward for your consideration on non-consent. Because of the nature being a conditional use permit for on-sale liquor, we do bring all of those forward for your review. We think that this will be a nice complement to the existing other uses on that building. It's not fully developed. Currently, there's an insurance office and a restaurant there. The other 2 suites do not yet have tenants. I can give a more thorough explanation of the project if you'd like a full presentation, but yeah. So from the site plan? Okay. Yeah. So
Go
that's
down.
There you go. We always look at saturation and any potential conflicting land uses with on-sale permits. There are no residential districts, churches within 500 feet, as well as parks, and there are no other similar uses in proximity actually here. So you think of Black Hills Energy and a lot of the other employment areas, we think this will really be a nice complement to provide a gathering space for coworkers to go to happy hour after work or whatever. So.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Okay. Vince made the motion to approve item 18 with the 4 stipulations as listed. And John seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 19.
Mr. Chair, it is our habit to bring back to you any appealed items and what the decision of the city council was and whether they agreed with you or not. Oh, I am so sorry. I'm ready to shut the meeting down.
I know. We got 19. We have a withdrawal.
Sorry. Left.
Would anybody like to move to acknowledge a withdrawal on item 19?
Yeah, so just for some brief history, Mr. Chair, that this was the one that the notification requirement was not met, where the sign was not posted continuously on the property. So this was continued to our January 6th meeting, which is today. The applicant then has missed the deadline to apply through the state for a medical cannabis dispensary. So the applicant would like to withdraw this application.
All right. Vince made a motion to approve the acknowledgement of the applicant's withdrawal, and Mike Kwasny seconded that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now you're up, Vicki.
No,
Discussion items.
This is all your fault because you let them move item 20. My apologies. On your next agenda, we'll have a tally of actions that were taken by council for all those medical cannabis dispensary applications. Just know, if you weren't paying attention, they certainly didn't agree with the decisions of Planning Commission. But we'll have those numbers, just for record. Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Vince?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I did pay attention. And I'm sorry that Ron and Pat are not here, because they are my council representatives from Ward 1. In particular, there were comments made by at least 2 other council members that concern me. First of all, we have made it clear on this commission that we respect the staff and their position and their recommendations. To overturn anything that the staff recommends, it takes considerable consideration, and it isn't easy for us. One of the comments that was made to the media was that several of these items never should have made it out of the Planning Commission. And I disagree with that, because that's our purpose here. Our purpose may not agree with the council or agree with the applicants, but our purpose is that we do take it serious, and I just want to make that clear. We do take it serious. Regardless of what they said in the media, I still respect this commission, and I consider it an honor working with you, and I mean that sincerely. The other one in particular, and we could wait till the next meeting, but I just want to mention this specifically. When 70% of South Dakotans vote for something, I take it very seriously, so I'm speaking for myself now, is that I take it very seriously, 70%, and this is medical marijuana. We're not talking recreational, we're talking medical. And that location on Mount Rushmore Road in Cathedral, where the owner made a concession to change the entrance, and we had signs posted. I had 2 people that came to me afterward and said that they were really under the impression that location was offering recreational marijuana. And they had no clue that you have to get a prescription. The state has to approve you. There were still other things that went on. And they mentioned again the school and the church that were nearby, but not within the boundaries according to our zones. And so with that in mind, for them to outright reject it seemed unfair. And I don't know where that will go after that. I mean, if they get another chance to revisit that request, but again, we're talking, that location already has a pharmacy and issues routinely prescribed medication. And if it's medical marijuana, that would have been the ideal location, because that location has already served the community for years. So thanks for the opportunity. I won't take up any more of your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Vince. Mike?
Vince, you said that very well. Thank you for saying it, and that was some of the comments that I had. It was discerning. I watched the whole council meeting online, and I was very concerned with some of the comments and stuff that have come out of it. So we do take this very serious, what we're doing up here, so I appreciate that. The other thing is, Vicki, are they not paying the heating bill?
Thank you. So it's not just me. I want you guys to know that I have a heater going over here, and I can't get 2 feet away from it, and my teeth start chattering.
I got to be careful because my teeth are chattering up here.
I will mention that if we can get we had a meeting in here yesterday morning, same thing.
I would call that an official planning commission item. Eric Heiketh?
So on the medical and recreational marijuana issue, I've been tracking, this is just a sidebar, but I've been tracking what they're doing in Montana, which is kind of interesting. Those counties that voted yes for it have dispensaries, and they have that in process now, and those counties and areas that voted no for it don't. I thought that was some simple, pragmatic lawmaking there. So the ones that wanted it, you got it, and the ones that didn't, you don't. So that was a clear line in the sand that Montana drew in their case, which was interesting. So,
Chair, even though the ultimate action of council was overwhelmingly in opposition to anything that was within 500 feet of all those sensitive uses, let's not forget that that typically was a 4-5 split vote. They didn't agree with each other on most of them, and there were several council that did state and support the hard work that Planning Commission did. Ron was one of them, because he does appreciate what Planning Commission does vet, and he assisted staff to the greatest degree possible in both of those meetings, and I did appreciate it. So, you know, I summed it up as, I am so proud of this Planning Commission, and it's great to know that you folks read the reports, and it's evident with a lot of the questions that you ask. And it was also evident that this council doesn't read reports, they read memos. And the devil's in the detail, and we put that detail in those reports. And we just, it's a lot of energy and a lot of time, and thank you for taking the time to read them.
All right, who's got a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Vince. All right, John seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you all for sticking with this one.